In the American colonies during the mid-18th century, black enslaved Africans arrived on tobacco plantations, marking the beginning of a grueling chapter from 1750 onward. The year 1750 brought the first significant waves, their bodies worn by the harrowing Middle Passage across the Atlantic. Welcome to the Glorious Historian, where the silenced voices of enslaved Africans resound through time. From brutal chains to unbroken spirits, we unveil their struggles, resilience, and legacy. Subscribe now, share your thoughts below, and journey deeper into their truth. Let their voices guide your heart. Listen on. They stepped onto the shores of Virginia, their feet touching foreign soil, chains clanking with each movement as they were herded like cattle. Their spirits were battered, yet a flicker of defiance remained in their eyes. White enslavers in fine wool coats, their attire a stark contrast to the ragged newcomers, inspected them with cold precision, assessing their worth. The air was thick with the scent of tobacco leaves and damp earth, a new world of unending toil awaiting them. They were stripped of their names, replaced with numbers or simple labels by their white owners, a dehumanizing act meant to erase their identities. Their assigned cabins were crude, constructed from rough-hewn logs, the interiors bare with dirt floors that offered no comfort against the cold. The days commenced at dawn, the overseer's horn cutting through the stillness, a signal they could not ignore. Black enslaved men and women stumbled into the fields, their hands raw and blistered from the first encounters with tobacco leaves. The sun rose slowly, its heat becoming a relentless torment by mid-morning, beating down on their unprotected skin. They learned to bend under the weight of labor, their backs aching with every repetitive motion, muscles protesting with each stoop. The white overseer patrolled the rows on horseback, his whip coiled and ready, a constant threat that hung heavy in the air. They exchanged glances of solidarity, a silent bond forming amidst the suffering, a flicker of hope in their shared hardship. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs, the meager rations of cornmeal and salt pork barely sustaining their weakening bodies. They slept on thin, worn mats, the cold night air seeping through the cabin walls, chilling their bones. Yet they began to adapt, their resilience emerging as they faced each new day with determination. They whispered prayers in the darkness, their faith a lifeline connecting them to a distant hope. The tobacco fields stretched endlessly before them, a symbol of their bondage, but also a testament to their enduring spirit as they navigated this early struggle. Tobacco cultivation became the cornerstone of existence for black enslaved Africans from 1750 to 1780, a labor-intensive process that defined their daily lives. The fields demanded constant attention, beginning with the planting season in early spring and extending through the grueling harvest in late summer. Black enslaved men wielded heavy hoes, turning the rich Virginia soil under the stern gaze of white overseers dressed in gray wool coats, their presence a constant reminder of authority. Black enslaved women carried overflowing baskets, their arms straining with the weight of freshly picked tobacco leaves, the rough texture cutting into their palms. The work was backbreaking, the soil turning sticky and treacherous after spring rains, making each step a challenge. Thorns from the tobacco plants pierced their skin, drawing small beads of blood that mingled with the sweat pouring down their faces. The white enslavers, driven by profit, demanded ever higher yields, pushing the pace to an unrelenting rhythm that left no room for rest. They labored from sunrise to sunset, the daylight hours blending into a monotonous blur of motion, their bodies moving almost mechanically. The heat of summer scorched their exposed skin, offering no respite as the sun climbed higher in the sky. They wore tattered cotton shirts and dresses, the fabric worn thin and frayed by the constant friction of their labor. The white overseer's lash fell upon those who faltered, the sharp crack of the whip echoing across the fields, a sound that instilled fear. They learned to move with practiced speed, their bodies gradually adapting to the punishing rhythm of toil, though the strain never lessened. Insects swarmed around them, mosquitoes leaving itchy bites that added to their discomfort, while flies buzzed incessantly around the harvested leaves. They had no tools to ease their burden beyond their bare hands, which became calloused and scarred over time. Yet they found ways to endure, their physical strength growing with each passing day as they pushed through the pain. They sang softly, their voices carrying over the rows of tobacco, a quiet act of resistance that lifted their spirits. The tobacco barns loomed in the distance, their dark silhouettes a reminder of the endless cycle of work, but also a symbol of their survival against all odds. The living conditions for Black enslaved Africans in the 1750s were harsh and unforgiving, a stark reflection of their subjugation. Their cabins, small and hastily built from rough logs, stood clustered near the tobacco fields, offering little shelter. The walls were riddled with gaps that allowed the wind to whistle through, chilling them even in mild weather. The roofs, made of poorly fitted wooden shingles, leaked during rains, soaking their thin mats and leaving puddles on the dirt floors. Black enslaved women and children huddled together for warmth, their bodies frail and trembling from the cold and hunger that plagued them daily. The white enslavers provided scant resources, expecting them to survive on the bare minimum, their indifference a calculated part of the system. Their staples consisted of moldy cornmeal and occasional scraps of salt pork, often insufficient to sustain the rigorous labor they endured. They cooked over open fires built inside the cabins, the smoke stinging their eyes and filling the air with an acrid haze. The lack of windows plunged the interiors into perpetual darkness, a constant companion that offered no relief from their misery. Diseases spread rapidly through the close quarters, malaria and dysentery claiming lives with ruthless efficiency, their weakened bodies unable to fight off the infections. They had no access to medicine, relying instead on herbs gathered in secret from the surrounding woods, a knowledge passed down through whispered lessons. The white overseer conducted regular inspections of their quarters, punishing any sign of disorder or perceived laziness with swift brutality. They slept on the hard ground, their bodies aching from the unyielding surface, the thin mats offering little cushion. The cold of winter seeped through the walls, their tattered clothing providing scant protection against the biting frost. They cared for their sick with what little they possessed, their hands trembling with exhaustion as they tended to the fevered brows of their kin. Yet they found ways to cope, their community becoming a source of solace amidst the hardship. They shared stories by the flickering firelight, keeping their spirits alive with tales of resilience. The cabins were a prison of despair, but also a crucible where hope began to take root, nurtured by their collective endurance. Community became a vital lifeline for Black enslaved Africans between 1750 and 1780, a sanctuary forged in the face of relentless oppression. They gathered in secret after the sun had set, their voices kept low to avoid the ears of the white enslavers who patrolled the night. Black enslaved women often took the lead in these clandestine meetings, their wisdom and experience guiding the group through the darkness. They shared whatever food they could spare, a handful of wild berries or a stolen yam passed from hand to hand. A gesture of solidarity. Black enslaved men used their skills to repair broken tools, their hands deft despite the strain of long hours in the fields. They cared for each other's Black children, ensuring that no one was left alone to face the harsh realities of their bondage. The white enslavers strictly forbade such gatherings, viewing them as threats to their control, but the enslaved persisted, finding hidden clearings amidst the trees to convene. They built strong bonds through their shared labor during the day, their teamwork a quiet defiance against the isolation imposed upon them. They taught each other essential survival skills, from foraging for edible plants to mending torn clothing with whatever thread they could find. The community offered much-needed emotional support, their rare laughter a precious sound that echoed softly in the night. They mourned their losses together, their tears a shared burden that bound them closer in grief. The white overseers' patrols, with their flickering lanterns, could not fully break the unity that grew among them. They passed down oral histories, preserving their African roots through stories of distant lands and heroic ancestors. These gatherings were fraught with risk, the punishment severe if discovered, often resulting in lashes or worse. Yet they continued undeterred, their community a fortress of hope that stood firm against the encroaching despair. They sang spirituals, their melodies rising like prayers for freedom, a sound that carried their dreams into the night. The strength of their togetherness grew with each meeting, laying a foundation for future acts of resistance that would echo through the years. Cultural resistance emerged as a powerful force among Black enslaved Africans in the mid-18th century, a means to preserve their humanity amidst the dehumanization of slavery. They sang songs in the tobacco fields, their voices blending in harmonious waves that rose above the rustle of leaves, a sound that carried both sorrow and hope. These spirituals were more than music. They contained coded messages, subtle directions for escape that the white enslavers failed to decipher. Black enslaved women danced in secret gatherings, their movements a celebration of life and a defiant rejection of their bondage, performed under the cover of night. They crafted items from the scant materials available, weaving baskets with skilled hands from reeds gathered along the river banks, each stitch a testament to their ingenuity. The white enslavers dismissed these acts as trivial, unaware of the deeper significance they held as acts of resistance and identity preservation. They told stories of their African past, recounting tales of warriors, spirits, and kings, keeping their heritage alive in the hearts of their listeners. Black enslaved children sat wide-eyed, absorbing these narratives, their young minds retaining the legacy of their ancestors. They used herbs for healing, their knowledge of medicinal plants a quiet rebellion against the neglect of their white owners, treating wounds and fevers with care. The white overseer's ignorance allowed these traditions to flourish, his focus fixed on labor rather than the cultural life budding in the shadows. They named their children with deep meaning, choosing names that honored their heritage and carried stories of their lost homeland, a subtle act of defiance. These cultural practices were dangerous, the risk of punishment ever present, with discovery often leading to severe repercussions. Yet they persisted with unwavering resolve, their culture serving as a shield against the despair that threatened to engulf them. They carved wooden figures from scraps, symbols of their resilience etched with care. The songs and dances grew bolder over time, a subtle challenge to the bondage that defined their lives. Their culture became a lasting legacy, passed down through generations, a testament to their enduring spirit that refused to be extinguished. The struggle for sustenance was a daily battle for Black enslaved Africans from 1750 to 1780, a fight to keep body and soul together under oppressive conditions. The white enslavers provided scant rations, often consisting of rotten cornmeal and meager scraps of salt pork, barely enough to sustain life. Hunger gnawed persistently at their stomachs, weakening their bodies and sapping their strength as they faced each new day. Black enslaved women ventured into the surrounding woods to forage, risking lashes to gather roots and wild berries, their movements cautious to avoid detection. They boiled these meager findings over open fires, stretching the food with water to feed as many as possible. Their resourcefulness, a quiet act of survival. The white overseer monitored their every move with a vigilant eye, punishing any hint of theft with harsh brutality, his whip a constant threat. They hid small scraps at the crevices of their cabins, a desperate measure to save a morsel for the next day, knowing discovery could mean severe punishment. Black enslaved children often went hungry, their growth stunted by the chronic malnutrition that plagued the community, their small frames a silent testament to their hardship. They shared what little they had, ensuring that no one starved completely, their generosity a bond that held them together. The tobacco fields offered no relief, the demanding work leaving no time to hunt or gather more substantial food. They learned to identify and eat wild plants, their knowledge expanding with each necessity-driven expedition into the wilderness. The white enslavers amassed wealth while they suffered, the stark contrast a bitter reminder of their exploitation. Yet they found ways to endure, their ingenuity blossoming into a quiet resistance against the odds. They traded small items among themselves, thread, a piece of cloth, a carved trinket, building a network of support that sustained them. Hunger tested their limits, pushing them to the brink, but their will to live prevailed, fueled by an unyielding determination. Their struggle for food was a daily fight, their resilience a beacon of hope that shone through the darkest times. The physical toll of labor on Black enslaved Africans was immense during the period from 1750 to 1780, a relentless assault on their bodies that shaped their existence. They worked from the first light of dawn until the last rays of sunset, their bodies pushed to the absolute limit by the unending demands of the tobacco fields. Black enslaved men swung heavy hoes, their muscles straining and bulging under the unrelenting sun, each swing a test of their endurance. Black enslaved women carried burdensome loads, their backs permanently bent from the weight of baskets filled with tobacco leaves, the strain etched into their postures. The white overseer's whip enforced this grueling pace, its lashes leaving deep scars on their skin, marks that told stories of their suffering. Thorns from the tobacco plants and the bites of relentless insects added to their agony, the cuts and welts festering without proper care in the humid air. They wore tattered cotton shirts and dresses, the fabric shredded and frayed by the constant friction of their labor, offering little protection. The heat of summer drained their energy, dehydration a constant threat as they toiled without sufficient water, their lips cracking under the strain. They labored through bouts of illness, their bodies weakened by diseases like malaria. Yet the white enslavers demanded they continue regardless. The white enslavers' greed knew no bounds, their calls for increased productivity driving the enslaved to the edge of collapse. Black enslaved children were forced to join the work as soon as they could walk, their small frames overtaxed by tasks beyond their strength, their innocence lost to the fields. They suffered frequent injuries, broken bones from falls, sprains from overexertion, yet these were ignored by their owners, left to heal poorly or not at all. Yet they pressed on, their endurance a quiet defiance against the physical torment inflicted upon them. They adapted to the chronic pain, their bodies becoming resilient in ways that surprised even themselves. A testament to their unyielding spirit, the physical toll was a daily reality, a burden they carried with stoic resolve, but their survival spoke volumes of their inner strength. The emotional weight of bondage bore down heavily on Black enslaved Africans, a burden that permeated every aspect of their lives from 1750 to 1780. They lived with a constant gnawing fear, the white overseer's presence a perpetual threat that loomed over their every action. The loss of their freedom haunted their dreams, a deep ache that lingered in their minds, a pain they could neither escape nor fully express. Black enslaved women mourned the separation from their families, their hearts aching with a grief that knew no end, the memory of lost loved ones a constant companion. The white enslavers' cruelty left indelible scars on their souls, their humanity denied through acts of violence and degradation. They suppressed their anger, knowing that any overt rebellion could mean death, their rage simmering beneath a carefully maintained facade of submission. They hid their tears, aware that showing weakness could be exploited by those who held power over them, their sorrow a private grief kept locked within. Black enslaved children grew up in a world of terror, their innocence stolen by the harsh realities they faced from a tender age. They clung to a fragile thread of hope, a belief in a better future that sustained them through the darkest moments of despair. The white overseer's taunts cut deeper than his whip, their words designed to break spirits as much as the lash broke flesh. They found solace in the embrace of their community, the shared pain forging a bond that offered mutual support. They prayed in secret, their faith a refuge that provided strength and a vision of deliverance. The emotional burden tested their spirit to its limits, pushing them to the edge of endurance, but they held firm. They sang to lift their hearts, their voices rising in spirituals that served as a quiet rebellion against the oppression they endured. Their emotional strength grew with each trial, a legacy of resilience that would inspire future generations. Seeds of resistance began to take root among black enslaved Africans by the 1770s, a subtle but growing challenge to their bondage. They slowed their work with deliberate care, frustrating the white overseers' demands for efficiency. Their pace a quiet protest. Black enslaved men broke tools during the day, their sabotage hidden in the midst of their labor, the damaged hose discarded without comment. Black enslaved women shared knowledge of escape routes in hushed whispers, their voices cautious as they passed along vital information under the cover of night. The white enslavers grew wary of these signs, increasing their patrols with white overseers in gray wool coats scouring the plantations. They planned in secret, their courage building with each clandestine meeting held in hidden clearings, their resolve strengthening. They used coded songs, their melodies carrying messages undetected by white ears, a form of communication that evaded scrutiny. The white overseer's punishments grew harsher in response, his whip falling more frequently, but their determination only deepened. They helped runaways when possible, risking their own safety to offer food or directions, their compassion a defiant act. Black enslaved children carried messages between groups, their innocence serving as a shield against suspicion, their small hands passing notes unseen. The resistance was small in scale, but its impact rippled through the community, inspiring others to hope. They dreamed of freedom, their hope fueling every cautious step toward liberation. A vision that kept them going. The white enslavers could not fully crush their spirit, despite their efforts to impose control. Their resistance was a spark, a promise of future liberation that would grow with time. They endured the consequences, lashes, confinement, with bravery. Their actions a quiet force that laid the groundwork for change. The Revolutionary War, beginning in the 1770s, brought a complex shift for black enslaved Africans, its echoes reaching the tobacco fields of the colonies. The white colonists fought for their own liberty, an irony that was not lost on the enslaved, who listened intently to the rhetoric of freedom. Black enslaved men and women heard whispers of this struggle, their hopes rising with each tale of battle, a possibility of change flickering in their minds. The white enslavers tightened their control in response, fearing that the ideas of liberty might inspire rebellion among their workforce. Some black enslaved individuals seized the opportunity to escape, joining British lines where promises of freedom were offered, their flight a bold act of defiance. The white overseer's vigilance increased, his whip falling more frequently as he sought to maintain order amidst the chaos. They learned of abolitionist ideas circulating among some white sympathizers, their spirits lifted by the notion that their plight might be recognized. The war disrupted the normal rhythm of the plantations, offering brief moments of respite as white enslavers turned their attention to the conflict. Black enslaved women cared for the sick and injured, their skills in herbal remedies becoming vital in the absence of medical care. The white enslavers' focus shifted, giving the enslaved rare opportunities to rest or plan. Though these were fleeting, they prayed for the war's end, their faith unshaken despite the uncertainty, their voices rising in quiet supplication. The conflict exposed the hypocrisy of the freedom fight, fueling their resolve to seek their own liberation. They endured the chaos of war-torn fields, their hope growing stronger with each passing day. The war's outcome remained uncertain, a shadow over their future, but their spirit endured, a light that refused to be extinguished. The legacy of Black enslaved Africans from 1750 to 1780 is a profound testament to their resilience, a story of survival against the harshest of conditions. They endured unimaginable trials, their bodies and spirits tested by the brutality of slavery. Yet they refused to be broken. They crafted hope through their labor, their hands shaping a future from the tobacco fields. Each leaf picked a step toward endurance. They preserved their rich culture, their songs and stories, a precious gift passed down to their descendants, a heritage that refused to be erased. They built a strong community, their bonds a foundation of strength that supported them through the darkest times. They raised Black children under oppressive circumstances, teaching them the skills of survival and instilling a sense of pride that would carry forward. They resisted subtly their actions, slowed work, broken tools, shared knowledge, a spark that ignited the flame of future freedom movements. They weathered the turmoil of the Revolutionary War, their hope undimmed by the uncertainty, their faith a guiding light. Their legacy inspired later generations, their courage a beacon that guided the path toward abolition. They contributed richly to the cultural fabric of the nation, their influence woven into the tapestry of American history. Their descendants carry their spirit forward, a living testament to their endurance and unyielding will. They stand as unsung heroes, their struggle a vital chapter in the narrative of human resilience. Their voices echo through history, a legacy of strength that continues to resonate, a reminder of the power of the human spirit to prevail.